Chapter 1826 Plato's and Character. Gao Chongkong retreated with Batu and Guman. The subordinates around Emperor Shi Tian immediately asked anxiously, "Emperor, why did you let him go? That despicable outsider must be hiding something." They ran away without caring about the lives of others, and they should be severely punished. Emperor Shi Tian said with a deep gaze, "Do you still remember that they are outsiders?" The tone of several subordinates nearby suddenly froze. That's right, Gao Chongkong is a foreigner. Even though he became a member of the 8 clans, he was always ostracized by others among the 8 clans. But Gao Chongkong is very powerful and has completed many tasks in Bharata excellently. He is just a mercenary doing things for money, but there is no need for him to die for Bharata. So he ran away, and no one could say anything. After all, Bharata did not give the treatment to his own people either. It's just that, is it possible that the deaths of other people are related to them? The strange people among the heavens raised doubts. Emperor Shi Tian crossed his arms over his chest and said in a confident tone, "It can't be him. He can't do such a beautiful job." He felt that he knew Gao Chongkong very well. He also felt that Gao Chongkong was now a dog that had been expelled by the Huashu kingdom and had to depend on them. How dare a dog go against its master? The city of Karen was once the capital of Fremons. However, in the last war, the mechanical civilization directly occupied this area and drove away the pantheon and official high-ranking officials of Fremons. Fremons believes this is an act of revenge. At this time in Karen City, the person in charge of guarding here is Demon God be among the 10 demon gods. The city of Karen has disappeared. The entire city was hollowed out, and the ground beneath the ground was dug deep, revealing many historical relics. But like his other companions, Demon B did not find anything valuable. They had found several dark rooms like the one Zhang Yi found. However, such things are not their real purpose. Demon God B looked at a piece of black metal-like substance sent by his mechanical life form, placed it in his palm, scanned it, and shook his head helplessly. "Platus, what is this?" A somewhat confused voice came from the side, and a large round metal head popped out from the right side of Demon B. Its head was twice the size of Demon B, just like a huge lead ball. Demon B, Platos held it up with his fingers and looked up at the sky. The grayish-white sun seemed to be dying at any moment, and its thin light shone down, faintly passing through the translucent black metal block. "It's just the dust of history." As he spoke, he threw the black metal in his hand directly to the metal ball head next to him. "All our efforts have been in vain. They are not where we thought they were. As expected, using our level of civilization to measure the existence of a god-level civilization is as ridiculous as a bug trying to measure the depths of the ocean." The metal ball head took the black metal and looked happy. He stood up with a boom, and his body was twice as big as the demon god Prados. Apart from the funny spherical head, he has a tall and sturdy body, and his body is covered with extremely thick black armor. Character. Platos looked at the spherical head that was happily playing with the metal block and suddenly asked, "How do you feel about the current situation?" Prados asked, staring at Karag. Character looked at Platos blankly, then laughed without thinking, but that laughter was also a metallic sound. "I feel great to be with Prados. But I must keep an eye on Platos. Otherwise, one day you might suddenly disappear, and I won't be able to see you again." He lowered his head as if he was a little disappointed. Camlotte, Moncabella, and Gelati, they were all like that. They disappeared suddenly. Platos was silent for a moment, not knowing how to answer Character's question. He raised his head and looked into the distance. There were busy mechanical life forms everywhere. They were cleaning up the soil and construction waste here according to orders, and then continued to dig deep into the earth. Plato's order was over. Because there is no point in continuing to dig, what they want to find is not under the land in the core area of the human kingdom. But until they receive new orders, they will continue to act according to the last order until their energy is exhausted. Character. Platos suddenly spoke. Character, He looked at Platos, his brother, curiously. "Do you long to see them again? I mean Kenlati, Moncabella, Angelati, and all that." Character's eyes, The two red crystals embedded in the spherical head suddenly burst into light. Of course I do. With them around, there will be more people to play with me. Platos turned around and said calmly, as long as the chips that record their memories are implanted into other mechanical life forms, they can show the same temperament as your friends. Do you think this is a good idea? However, they only live in the past and have no future. They cannot grow with you. When you touch upon an area they do not understand, he pointed at the mechanical life forms, they will become down like these guys. Do you want a partner like this? Karakter suddenly covered his head, his eyes flickering. It's so complicated, too complicated. Karakter can't figure it out. Platos remained silent, but seeing his confused brother, he reached out and stroked his arm. We will find the answer. Karakter,
you won't always be like this.
As long as we find the answer, our civilization can continue. You will get many new companions, and you won't be alone with me like in the past. But before that, Platos turned his head slowly, looked into the distance, and said in an extremely calm tone, let's solve the current problem first. 200 kilometers away from here, 10 large transport planes slowly descended from the sky. After the hatches opened, parachutes dropped one heavy artillery after another. Soon, a huge corps of heavy artillery was deployed on the ground. In the sky, fighter jets carrying huge missiles are ready to attack at any time. Fremon's offensive force has arrived at the battlefield. As local troops, they have an advantage that other troops cannot achieve, and that is that they can mobilize all the military forces of Fremon's. In this huge battlefield, it would be extremely foolish for Fremon soldiers to collide with those steel bodies. However, these powerful heavy artillery pieces are improved versions after the end of the world. Although they are extremely heavy and difficult to move, they are excellent weapons for positional warfare. And to make up for the defect of being difficult to move, their firepower and range far exceed those of the old-fashioned artillery in peacetime. Led by the three giants of the pantheon, goddess of winter, Morana, god of thunder, Alexei, and god of the moon, Jusselberg, thousands of elite Krufa warriors appeared in the wind and snow fully armed. These soldiers were tightly wrapped in combat uniforms, exuding a strong murderous aura. Every Krufa warrior crawled out of a pile of dead bodies. Without a lot of blood on his hands, he could not become the elite among the elite of Fremons. Karen City, Morana stood at the forefront of the battle formation, staring at the ruins of the city that had long been razed to the ground. We are back. In the sky, multiple satellites also have a clear grasp of the movements of the mechanical army in the Karen City area. At the command center in Samran City, the three giants, Pataka, Vladimir, and Aliev, were personally in charge and commanded the war. This battle is their battle to retake the capital. Now that the other demons have been dispersed by alien troops from other countries, this is when the defense of Karen City is at its weakest. They wanted to take back the city of Karen in one fell swoop, even if only ruins remained. But what Fremons wanted was their glory. Defeating the mechanical army head-on and taking back what belonged to them would prevent them from becoming a laughingstock in the international community. Marshal Aliev was in charge of the war command. He stood on the command platform, holding the edge of the platform with both hands, and said in a deep voice, "The artillery and air force will take the lead in launching carpet bombing on the target area. Use all the ammunition and do our best to kill the enemy's living forces. After that, the ground troops will enter the scene to finish off the fight." Morana said coldly, "Received." Aliev lowered his head and said to Morana seriously, "The control of Sky 1 is handed over to you. You can mobilize it when necessary." Songkong 1 is a powerful weapon similar to the Huashu Kingdom's space-based weapons. Launched by Fremon's Sky Satellite Network, it can be shot directly from low Earth orbit to the ground of Fremons at an extremely high speed. It is one of the most threatening weapons to Epsilon-class targets. If used properly, its effect can sometimes be even better than that of Death of Love. Receive. Morana's tone remained cold. When the Fremons troops appeared, the mechanical civilization had already noticed it. With their civilization and technology, a troop movement of this scale could not have escaped their eyes. The entire mechanical army entered a state of combat readiness. Morena led the alien troops and rushed to the battlefield. At the same time, the entire artillery unit, as well as the fighter planes carrying heavy missiles in the sky, began a fierce artillery bombardment. The roar resounded throughout the snowy field, and the shells formed dense streaks of light in the air, heading straight into the sky, then drawing a beautiful arc in the air and falling towards the position of the Mechanical Legion. The Mechanical Legion was also ruthless. The mechanical life forms fired powerful laser cannons to shoot down the dense missiles in the air. Rows of tank-like mechanical life forms set up camp on the ground, then raised their guns and began to counterattack. At this time, it was a moonless night, but the sky was already illuminated, and it was brighter than daytime. In the first round of the war, one of the most powerful beings in the human kingdom launched a fierce attack on the army of mechanical civilization. Platos looked at the bright light in the sky calmly, without any fluctuation in his eyes. He just calmly reported the situation in Karen City to the Six-Winged King. "We found no entrance here." "Really? I see. But it's within expectations." "Well, maybe we were wrong from the beginning. The key to whether we can find a god-level civilization is not for us to find it, but for them to allow us to find it." Chernobyl. Accompanied by the demon armor, the Six-Winged King has gone deep into this radiation-filled area. Even though more than half a century has passed since the intense energy impact, he can still feel the powerful residual energy. "Come over to us," the Six-Winged King said. But Pratos said, "There are humans here. I'll go over there after I've dealt with them." "Okay, as soon as possible." After ending the communication, Platos decided to end the battle quickly. This magnificent performance should come to an end as soon as possible. Although he had received news that his colleagues had died in several other battlefields, he did not feel too sad. Perhaps the years have made him numb, or perhaps death is a relief for people like them. Artillery fire was burning on the battlefield, and a large number of mechanical life forms were destroyed. The situation in the human camp was not much better. The bodies of the soldiers looked like pieces of meat, flying everywhere at the slightest touch. The first round of bombing continued, but the powerful aliens could not wait any longer. The one who truly decides the outcome on the battlefield is the top-level alien. Morena led the aliens of the Pantheon and the Krufa troops and rushed towards the core location of the Mechanical Legion like a pack of wolves in the snow. "Feel the wrath of winters." Morena charged at the front of the team, her arms open. The extreme cold current turned into white mist surging around her body and then swept across the land in front of her. In an instant, the entire earth froze, and white light spread in all directions with her as the center. A large number of mechanical life forms were directly frozen and turned into ice sculptures. Beside her, the thunder god Purin and the moon goddess took the opportunity to start a brutal killing. Thor raised the huge battle axe in his hand and roared angrily. The thunder in the sky roared and came down with a bang, landing on his battle axe. The thunder was roaring and flowing and turned into a dancing python on his giant axe, sweeping out with Thor's chops. Countless mechanical life forms were directly blown to pieces. In the center of the moon god's forehead, a crescent moon shone brightly. His body became illusory. The moon's shadow was hazy, and he had many incarnations. The huge crescent blade in his hand was raised, and it swept across the mechanical army like a phantom, and in an instant, it accurately cut a large number of mechanical life forms into broken metal blocks. Boom.
Boom. Boom.
One after another, super-large mechanical life forms appeared, with their main guns aimed at the approaching human aliens. The muzzles quickly gathered energy and launched an earth-shattering attack. The powerful energy cannon was as thick as a hill. It penetrated the space in an instant and arrived in front of the alien army. Thor stomped his feet on the ground and rushed forward, swinging the battle axe in his hand violently. His arm muscles bulged, becoming thicker than an ordinary person's thighs. The battle axe, accompanied by a terrifying flash of lightning, collided directly with the energy cannon, but actually blocked it with its powerful force. With the big three leading the way, the Krufa troops rushed onto the battlefield. They were fully armed and had thoroughly studied the structure of mechanical life forms. Therefore, after appearing, they first set up a reaction force field to offset the defense field of the mechanical life form. In this way, their supernatural advantages can be brought into play. Otherwise, if they rely solely on fighting against tens of thousands of mechanical life forms, they will be at a huge disadvantage. Only if the mechanical life forms lose their defensive field will they have hope of winning. Platos did not act like a coach at this time. In fact, there is no such concept as a coach among mechanical life forms. Pratos is only responsible for issuing combat orders, and then they will automatically attack humans that appear around them. Pratos stood in the center of the battlefield, with his younger brother Carriage beside him. The two were alone, watching the mechanical life forms around them fighting frantically. There wasn't too much emotion. Even if the mechanical life forms were destroyed, they were just pieces of steel that moved according to a fixed program. As long as they have enough resources, they can produce in large quantities at any time. Platos did not have much interest in war. The long years had almost made him forget his fear of death, and war could hardly bring him much pleasure. And dealing with these humans in front of him was just an ordinary task for him, nothing more. The frost in Morana began to spread from hundreds of kilometers away, but instead of stopping, its trend became stronger and stronger, until the battlefield where nearly half of the mechanical life forms were located was completely frozen. When Plato saw this scene, he probably felt that there was no point in continuing like this, so he decided to take action. Target assessment. There are 3 targets with threat capabilities, 5th-level life forms. Platos has already analyzed the opponent's combat power. Morana and the other 3 giants also rushed all the way and reached the area in front of him. Even though they were far away, they had already noticed each other's presence. Even the attacks of super-large mechanical life forms could not have any effect on Morana. She built a high wall with ice and frost, which was the most difficult barrier to break through.
Boom. Boom.
Several super-large mechanical life forms appeared, blocking their way like a hill. Thor and Moon God wanted to go forward and finish them off, but Morana reached out to stop them. There's not that much time to waste, let me do it. Her eyes emitted a faint blue light. No one could see clearly what she did, but suddenly she disappeared from the spot. The next moment, she appeared in front of those super-large mechanical life forms. Those super-large mechanical life forms froze in place, their mechanical bodies covered with frost. Boom! There was only a loud noise, as if a mountain was collapsing, and those super-large mechanical life forms with extremely strong combat capabilities were suddenly shattered. They broke into hundreds of metallic chunks and collapsed under a thick blanket of frost. Purin, the god of thunder, and Juzerberg, the god of the moon, who were standing behind him, were watching the scene. Even though they already knew how powerful Morana was, they couldn't help but look away. They were too familiar with these guys. During the defense of Karen City, it was extremely difficult for a powerful alien of their level to deal with 2 of them alone. Even now, they have understood the flaws of these mechanical life forms, and it won't be so difficult to deal with them, but they definitely can't do what Morana did and destroy 3 of them with just a wave of his hand. Platos looked at everything that was happening before his eyes, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. There are indeed some special individuals among humans. This is no wonder. After all, among the billions of life forms, there will always be some extraordinary beings that evolve due to the coming of the end of the world. It's interesting, isn't it? He said to Carricker next to him. Carricker looked at Morana and the other 2 who were walking towards them, and he looked excited.
Wow.
They are so powerful. I thought they were just some bugs on the surface, but I didn't expect they could actually destroy the tank. But they can't beat me and Platos. The 2 of us are the most powerful team in the world. Carricker raised his iron fist and said to Pratos in an excited voice, Pratos, it's been a long time. Let's go fight too. Platos smiled somewhat indulgently. Okay then. I'll leave the 2 guys at the back to you, and I'll take care of the female. Based on the energy fluctuations on the battlefield, he could already clearly judge the strength of the 3 giants of the Pantheon. Well, let's have a competition to see who can defeat the enemy faster. Karakter was already eager to try it out at this time. He hadn't found such a good toy for a long time. After all, the ones he played with before were all emotionless mechanical life forms. I'll go first. Karakter's huge body sank slightly, making a catapulting motion, and then the next moment, the ground beneath his feet collapsed, and he soared into the air like a cannonball, flying towards Morana and the other two. Platos folded his arms, and his body was covered with long and thin tentacles, inlaid with red energy crystals, and each tentacle was dancing slowly. At the end of the tentacles are sharp spikes that flash with a dim light, giving people a feeling of extreme danger. The moment Karakter attacked, his tentacles were dancing at a faster speed. Platos walked forward step by step. His steps were very steady, and it was impossible to tell how fast or slow he was, but his body was getting closer and closer to Morana and others. Boom! Karakter landed first in front of Morana and the other two. His huge body fell from the sky, causing the earth to tremble. Jesselberg frowned and said in a deep voice, "There is no such thing in the intelligence." "What is this thing?" "An ordinary mechanical life form," Perron said in a dull voice. "No, he is definitely not an ordinary character to be able to follow the demon god armor.